Does this work? Yeah, it works. Good, good, good. Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Kjetil from Nøgne. I realize we have some background noise to fight against, but I hope you can all hear me. If you cannot, move further up front, please. So, when I got here, I thought, my gosh, they have chosen the color of this scene just because of us. It couldn't have been better. Orange is our color. It's really great to be here, and thanks a lot for coming. I'm here to say a little bit about Nøgne, who we are, what we believe in, where we come from, and so on. I think that craft beer is not entirely about beer. It's not about beers being sold and purchased, and that transaction is not really the most important thing of craft beer. Craft beer is about people. So I'm here to talk a little bit about where we come from, what is our background idea of starting a brewery, and perhaps you understand more about who we are and what we try to convey with our beers. Because beer is flavor, and flavor is just one way to convey enjoyment and to convey flavors and ideas. Please. Because beer does... Okay, question, why is it about people and not about beer? Well, because I think beer goes into, well, at least it does with me, goes into my heart and it touches me. And I think by reaching out with beer, or perhaps good wine, or perhaps food, you're reaching out to people. You're doing something to people. One of the really great joys of being a craft brewer is to see somebody drinking a cold beer, and it's their first beer, and you see the smile of enjoyment of the first sips of cold beer coming down their throats. Another thing is when you see people sitting down around a table. 2 people, maybe 3, they have a beer in front of them, and you see that the beer is part of setting an atmosphere and to facilitate that good conversation, the good atmosphere. So I think beer is about reaching out to people, and I think understanding beer, appreciating the flavors, perhaps knowing how it's made, perhaps knowing who made it, I think that's part of it all. Beer is not a neutral thing coming out of a factory. It's much more than that. And that is what I'm going to at least try to convey here today. It's very important. You started off with a question. Super good. Please, everybody, if you have a question, then approach me. It's meaningless that I just stand here and talk. This is about us being together and creating the setting here together. That's very, very important. So, Nøgne, who are we? Where did we come from? And what happened? There's a lot of slides here. Some of them are very old. Some of them are fairly new. You'll get an idea about who we are and how we operate from looking at it, but I'm not going to comment much about it. It all started back in around, the late 90s. I was an airline pilot flying with Scandinavian Airlines, and I got exposed to good beers via traveling to different parts of the world. At that time, it was actually very hard to go into one beer bar and drink beers from different parts of the world. At that time, I could only find that in the United States. You can go into one beer bar, you could have a German beer, a Belgian beer, an American beer, and an English beer in the same bar the same evening. Quite wonderful. And this became like an obsession to me. I thought this was so good. And I thought that these flavors, well, first of all, I needed to master them myself, so I started making my own beers. It was impossible to find homebrew supplies in Norway at the time, so I had to get them from pretty much the United States. If you have an old Samsonite oyster, then I can tell you that it seems like that suitcase, the Samsonite, is perfectly made, tailor-made actually, for a bag of malt. 25 kilos of malt goes exactly into that suitcase. So I had many heavy suitcases, and I brought my home brew ingredients to Norway. And after a while, I thought I was quite successful in my home brews, and I started to try to share or to find people I could share this enthusiasm with. And I quickly realized that since light lagers were the only beers available in Norway at that time, then it was really difficult to find somebody who understood things. I mean, they could drink my IPA and say, wow, this is good, but it's like they didn't understand the concept of IPA, so it was like difficult to move on with proper conversations about this. And then I got this really stupid idea that somebody needs to make these flavors available to the Norwegian public. And without a business plan, without any idea about what it was like running a business or a company, I was able to persuade another homebrewer into starting this company with me. There was, of course, a long process of getting there. One of them was to discuss with our designer how to... Actually, this was a friend of mine who is an industrial designer, and his wife was a graphic designer, and I asked them, can you help us? And they said, sure, we can, but we need a name which we can work with. And if we do, then we will respect everything you do with the beer, with the flavors, but you have to respect everything we do with design. So we came up with many silly ideas for names for the brewery, but when we came to Nøgne and the Uncompromising Brewery, or the Kompromissløse Bryggeri, then they said, okay, we can use both of those, and we couldn't make up our minds, so we ended up using both of them. So that's the story behind the name. Well, what is the name? Nøgne means Naked Island. It's from a poem by Henrik Ibsen, which he wrote when he was located in Grimstad, where we're located. And it's all about a guy who had to row across to Denmark to get grains for his starving family. It's a really touching, long poem. But anyway, we thought that was the local connection which we wanted to have, which we thought was important to us. And also this Naked Island. Naked means to the fact that it doesn't have much vegetation. So it's like a barren rock almost. And that barren rock, it's not very impressive to look at. It's kind of basic and not very attractive. But it's there. It's there after the storm, and we thought, okay, we're going into doing something we have known nothing about. Probably we thought that the established brewing industry would be provoked by what we would be doing, and we thought that we will have a lot of problems, but at least after the storm, we will still be there. That was the only idea we had about our business. We were going to make these flavors so Norwegians could have access to these beer flavors which were not available. And regardless of what happens, we will stay put. We had no other business plan than that. Very simple. But then we realized quickly, of course, that setting up a brewery requires capital. It requires money. We didn't have any. So we were looking at, being homebrewers. I'm sure there must be homebrewers here. Being a homebrewer, you know what it's like. You take what you have. You perhaps go to the junkyard, you find something, or you source some cheap piping and valves and stuff and heaters, whatever. You find it somewhere, and you can always manipulate it and tamper with it so it works for you. And that's exactly what we did. We went and got some dairy tanks, and we got scrap metal, and we got pipes, and we got valves, and we put it all together into a basic brewery. That took 1.5 years. It was a lot of hard work, but it was the only way. We didn't have any more money. And it was kind of stupid. We couldn't afford to buy 2 pumps. We could only buy 1, which meant that the mash and lauter vessel had to be high up so we could use gravity. Which means that, okay, then you have to take all your malts and carry it all the way up, which was like 3.5 meters, to dump it in for it to mash, and to get it out, you had, of course, to do it the same way. So kind of hard, but it was the way we could make it work. So after 1.5 years, we started brewing beer. We were quite clear about one thing, that we wanted to brew the beers we loved. We wanted to make the beers we could believe in and that we could be proud of. We thought that if we tried to make the beers Norwegians know, then we're dead. Nobody had been able to make a new brewery in Norway by making products Norwegians wanted. So we thought we need to make the beers we love, and then we have to be patient and see that Norwegians will, after some time, understand what we're trying to convey. Pretty ambitious. We didn't understand how ambitious it was at that time, but when we had our first portfolio of beers, I'll get back to you very soon, when we had the first portfolio of beers, 4 beers, Amber, Pale Ale, Porter, and IPA, and we presented it to restaurant owners and bar managers, and we heard them say, "This is not beer," or "People here don't like this." Then we realized that we have spent a year and a half and all our pocket money, all our savings into something which was like products for a market which didn't exist. That was kind of tough. At that time, Norwegians were drinking light lagers. I mean, we're talking Pilsners, 4.7% filtered pasteurized lagers. There were a couple of Bock beers, perhaps, a Munich or two, darker beers. And I think there was 1 or 2 Weiss beers from Germany being imported. But that was it. So, having these products and realizing that there's no market for it was like a total shock. And the first challenge was that we needed to sell beers worth 50,000 kroners. What is that? 6,000 euros or something? To be able to get our VAT, our sales tax, back for all the investments we've done. And if we didn't do that, we would be bankrupt. And that took me 3 months. I was driving around in my old Land Rover trying to sell beers for 6,000 euros. And that took the whole summer. Now, we have this idea that I guess everybody knows that if you're in deep water, you have 2 choices. You can swim or you can sink. And we were swimming. So since it was a hard time, we had a hard time selling our beers in Norway, then, well, what do? Well, you need to find new markets. And I was flying all the time, so I started bringing my beers out. I had beers in my suitcase all the time, leaving beers behind in bars in Copenhagen, New York, Chicago, Tokyo, and so on. And after some time, well, this wasn't done in like a year or 2, but like over 3 or 4 years with hard work, then we got positive feedback from these bars, who then again new importers, and we started to export our beers to Denmark. Finland was actually one of the early countries, Sweden, and the United States. The crazy thing was that in 2008, we actually exported 80% of all our beers. It was not really, 70% of all our beers. It was not really the way we wanted it to be. We wanted to be the local brewery, but we totally failed. Nobody understood us. So it's like we ended up sending our beers abroad, which is of course a lot of fun. I mean, we enjoy sending our beers abroad. It's really what makes us proud. And now our hometown of Grimstad is actually proud because they have an exporting product. It's a small town, 20,000 people. They have a good university and they have a good brewery, and that's what they're proud of. So it's really nice right now. But it took a while, and exporting our beers was kind of what saved us, because we had such a hard time in Norway. Now, I know in Norway these days, it's really crazy. It's like very easy to sell craft beer. Craft beer sells, it's like a big hype. Everybody takes part in it. And I think we have about 1 new brewery starting every month in Norway these days. And from what I hear, it's the same thing here in Finland. There's new breweries starting all the time, and things are happening. And if there's one message I have to everybody who wants to start a new brewery, it's that small can be very, very difficult. Small can be very challenging. When we started our brewery, we got the advice that don't start too small. If it's too small, you will never generate enough turnover and income and profits to be able to invest and take the next step. Good. Our thought was to start with a 3 hectoliter brew house, 300 liters. So we upscaled to 600. We thought that was huge. Well, in hindsight, what I recommend is never try to brew with less than 2,000 liters with 20 hectoliters. That's the minimum, or else you'll just work yourself to death. And that's what we realized after like 3 years of operation. We realized that we were just working with no salary. We kept our day jobs. I was like flying 3 days, working in the brewery for 3 days. My partners going to work like starting 8 in the morning in their offices or whatever they were working with, and at 4 o'clock going straight from job 1 to job 2, which was a brewery, and then packaging beer until midnight, and then go home, sleep, and start the same thing over again the day after. So it's hard work. And I remember after 1 year of operation, we had enough money to buy a small bottling line, which cost like 400,000 kroners or 50,000 euros. And that was it. That's what we could afford after 1 year of hard work with no salary. And then we asked ourselves, okay, we need a new brew house. When can we afford that? Oh yeah, after 5 years of unpaid labor. So we realized that was really, really tough. And we've come to the conclusion that we needed capital. We needed an investor to come in to our brewery. That happened in 2005 and in 2006. We switched. I don't know what you've been seeing up here, but you've probably seen a smaller brew house, very basic, and you've seen a slightly larger one. And that's when we moved to the larger brewery in 2006. That was in 2006 that we got the first employee as well. We started in 2002 and got our first employee in 2006. It took a while. You can ask yourself, why do craft brewers keep on doing these things? Because our story is not unique. There are so many other breweries, and I'm sure there's lots of them here in Finland as well. People working very hard to create good beers, and they get nothing back, at least not money. So why do we do this? And I have a story which I think is really kind of good. I had this really bad day in the brewery, long day, and everything had gone wrong. Like equipment had gone wrong, and I had a stuck mash, and everything was against me. And at the end, closer to the end of the day, I called a friend of mine, an American guy who brews in Norway, Evan Lewis. His brewery is Agid in Flom, if you know him. So I called him just to share my frustration with someone, and I told him about everything that had gone wrong. And he listens to me, and then he says, when I was done, he says, then he asks me, Kjetil, he says, now you have to remember what you will have at the end of the day. The end of the day, I asked, what do you mean? Well, what are you going to do when you go home? He said, and I said, well, today I'm so tired, I'm thirsty, I'm frustrated, I need a beer. Exactly, he said. At the end of the day, there is beer. What would you have if you were a plumber, he asks me. And I said, well, if I was a plumber, I would probably have pipes. And he said, that's exactly right, and that's why you're a craft brewer. And I think that's the key to why craft brewers work hard. Craft brewers love, first of all, their own product, but they also love to see, as I described previously, the enjoyment and the satisfaction the product gives to other people. And that is something you don't find with software programmers and plumbers. And I don't mean to say anything bad about software programmers or plumbers, but it's something magical with craft beer. People in the craft beer environment do work hard, and they work hard for just the gratification of working with it, and they don't necessarily look for big money and things like that. Well, I was an airline pilot before me going into craft brewing. That's, as I said, that's what inspired me when I was traveling, and that's how I could bring my beers out to the different bars, and that's how we were able to go into export. But it's quite amazing if you go into breweries, and if you go into beer bars, beer retailers, beer importers, beer distributors. You'll be surprised to see how many people who comes from different businesses. I mean, we have bankers and we have IT people and whatnot, and people are drawn to craft beer. It's a really great business to be in. I also feel a lot of pride because of the fact that people in the craft beer industry share ideas all the time. I think this comes from the United States, where they have a very open culture and environment around it, and I think we've been able to adopt that culture in Europe. It's important that we keep that culture, and it's important that we keep it not only among people in the craft beer industry, but it's important that we share it and we develop it among both people in the industry and the general craft beer drinker. We have a web shop in our brewery serving mostly home brewers. It's a lot of work. We ask ourselves whether it's profitable. We don't really know. Maybe it's going with a slight loss. Maybe it's break even. I don't know. But the most important thing is to educate people, make people understand what craft brewing is all about, what home brewing is all about, reaching out to people. And that's a very important part of what we are doing. Now, as I said, craft beer in Norway these days are just a lot of fun. It's very easy because everybody wants craft beer. And as I said a few years ago, 70% of what we were selling was for export markets and 30% was in Norway. Now it's the opposite way around. It's not that export markets has gone down. Not at all. It's going up. But Norwegian markets are going up even more. So so we actually sell 80% in the Norwegian market right now and 20% abroad. And that's just because the growth in the Norwegian market has been so phenomenal. So what has that done to us? It's very easy to lose your head or perhaps lose your heart when you're growing very quickly. We think it's very important that we stay put, that we focus on our core values, and stick to it, and not forget who we are. There's I don't know how to put this. There's a brewery which has very recently changed their, can we call it slogan? They used to be beers for punks. Now they are craft beer for the people. And I don't know if that's a result of growing. Like, okay, we want to target the punks, and all of a sudden we want to target everyone. But I think it's important to be loyal to who you are, and where do you come from, and what your core values are. We at Nøgne, we have 4 core values, which are really important to us. Number 1 is quality. For us, quality is the best ingredients we can have with regards to malts, hops, with regards to yeast and other ingredients we can put into the beer. To us, this is very important, that this is not a sweeping statement about the brewing industry in general, but to us, quality is about having the maximum flavor. And we don't really see how it makes sense to make a good beer, create lots of good flavors, and then you put your beer through a filter and you take out lots of those flavors. To us, that doesn't make sense. So for us, quality concept is about having non-filtered beers. So that was number 1, quality. Number 2, diversity. When we got started, we started because it was not enough different beers available in Norway. So we quickly had our first portfolio was 4 beers, as I mentioned. Then we started to have quickly more. We had, within half a year, we had 10 different beers. Now we have 20 different beers in our standard portfolio, which was easy when we only did 200,000 liters a year. Now we do 1.5 million, and it's very challenging. People in our organization, people who are focused on money and time in warehouse and all these things, they say, we have to cut it. We have to reduce the number of labels, the number of beers. I mean, the number of different beers. But we are so clear about that if we stop having that portfolio of all these different flavors, then we've totally forgotten where we come from. So we need to keep on having a diverse portfolio of beers. There should be a beer for every personality, for every food pairing, for every season, and for every occasion. And that's our goal. In addition to that, we think that beer is not just production. Beer is a creative process. We think that a brewer is like a chef who's like an artist. We are all creative artists, and we create flavors. Some artists create paintings, and others write, or like if you want to call an author an artist, I think that's fair. They write a book, and we create flavors. And we're very proud of it. And I think parts of making the flavor is not to reproduce it all the time. Of course, that's part of it as well. Of course, when you buy a bottle of pale ale, you know what you're looking for, you know what you're expecting, and you should get what you expect. But in addition to that, there should be more and interesting flavors. And we think that making new flavors is part of what craft brewing is all about. I don't know how many new flavors we come up with every year. Probably somewhere between 10 and 20. And these beers, for us, we just put them out in the market. First come, first served. Sometimes it takes 2 months to sell them. Other times they're done in a week and a half. And that's part of, I think, the beauty of craft brewing. Creative things, new ideas, and also understanding that you have to grab the opportunity when it's there. This is not only with regards to the new beers, which come and go, but this is also with regards to the beer you have in your hand. If a beer is a craft beer, it's unfiltered, it's unpasteurized, then it is as it is right now because of how it has matured. That beer does not taste the same way the day after or the week after. And if you think that, oh, I like this beer, I'd like to have this experience again, so I'll come back to this pub next week. It'll be different. Appreciate the moment. Seize the moment. That is also what craft beer is about. I think that's a very, very important message. And by understanding it and accepting it, close your eyes and just indulge in the flavors you have in your mouth right there and then is part of the enjoyment. This is not we call it craft beer industry, but this is not industrial. This is not something which comes out of a bag and looks the same way every time. This is a living product. And I think understanding it and living it is part of the enjoyment. Now, third of our core values is the integrity of the beer style. There are some breweries, I hope not many, they're trying to manipulate the beer style or the beer according to a style in any way so that people should have an easy time to drink it. And I think that's wrong. A pale ale is a bitter beer. You cannot make a pale ale without it being bitter and to have a pronounced hop aroma. If you want to have a porter, it will be dark. Yes, some people think that dark beer is scary, and some people would say, ooh, I cannot have that dark thing. But if you want to make a porter, it has to be dark. So be true to the beer style. The integrity of the beer style is important. I respect it, and it should be clear to everyone who drinks a beer from Nøgne what is the base of this beer, which beer style is the foundation. That is something we believe very strongly in. Number 4 would be something which is really stupid, and I had a discussion with exactly this with our representative from our importer here in Finland today. Drinkability. Now, where does that come from? Who would want to make non-drinkable beer? Well, some breweries would like to shock people, like 1,000 IBU beer, or this is so dark you can probably not pour it out of the glass, or it's so high in alcohol, it's combustible, or it's so sweet that it's almost thick. And of course, these things are pretty impressive if you drink this much. It's great if you're a group of rate beer guys and you're 10 persons are sharing a bottle. But if you're having a bottle on your own and you open it, you pour it into a glass, then we would like, or we wish that you would enjoy the whole bottle or the whole glass all the way to the bottom, and ideally you should want to have another one when you're done. So that's the 4 important things which we believe in. If we have stayed with those 4 principles in all our beers, I think maybe there are a couple of exceptions. We had our 100% peated ale, where we actually put a warning on the front. We said almost undrinkable because it was made with only peated malt. But we got some complaints from customers. We got a lot of emails actually because people wrote to us and they said, "You're wrong. It's drinkable. It's good." So, but I think our first versions of Dark Horizon, which is 16% Imperial Stout, I think that should perhaps have been in smaller bottles. It was in half-liter bottles, and drinking half a liter of 16% strong beer is a little bit too much, I think. So maybe we've goofed there. I apologize. All right, yeah, I accept that. Our Mikkeller's 1,000 IBUs more drinkable and repeated, sure. As I said, we have beers for all locations, for all preferences, and I think it's fair. It's like we don't make the best beer in the world for everyone. We make some beers which we hope you like, and then of course, the world is full of great brewers, and we respect them all. So this is not like brainwashing guys and say drink only Nøgne. No, this is not what it's about. Drink all the different good beers out there and find out what you like. That's important. Now, I just need to focus on time here. Oops, happy I did that. So we were the first craft brewery to start in Norway. We are the largest one right now, and we think that we are the leading craft brewery in quality and creativity. At least that's what we try to do. Now, people ask us, how big can you be? When will you lose your charm? When will people think of you as industrial and boring? And especially after we, the shareholders, sold some of our shares to the Hansa Borg Group, which is a group of family-owned group of 3 breweries in Norway making light lagers. Hansa is the second largest operator in Norway, selling beers to the Norwegian market. Only Ringnes and Tuborg is bigger. So we have a new owner, and yes, they're quite significant. And people ask us, when will you lose it? How big can you be? Do you think you can grow into heaven and still be fun, interesting, and have good beers? And the answer for us is yes, we think so. We think it's possible, but it's all about heart. If we lose our heart, then we're dead. If people approaching us, if people coming to our brewery hear that, sorry, we don't have time, or if people are calling us or sending an email, don't get a proper response, then we're dead. Because, as I said, this is about people. This is about sharing. This is about building a relationship and a culture together. The moment we stop doing that, then we're dead. That's what we believe in. So yes, we're growing. Yes, we're moving into new facilities. Yes, we have to make sure that it should be possible for people to visit us in the new facility, and not just to come into like a visitors center, perhaps with a glass wall into the brewery. No, you need to come into the brewery and actually be able to smell the hops, touch the malt, shake the hands of the brewer. That's what it's all about. So we're very concerned about it. And what do we do about this? How do we make sure that we will be interesting in the future, that we will meet the expectations in the market, that we will have creative stuff? Well, there's one thing we have wanted to do for a long time, and that is to do more barrel aging, to do more bread fermented, more lacto-infected sour beers, and to start doing spontaneously fermented beers. So what have we done? We have recruited a guy from the United States, from Brooklyn Brewery. Stephen Andrews is his name. He started with us last month, and he's going to develop that. He's in charge of our barrel aging project, because we see that in Europe nobody has really done much about it. In the United States, you have Lost Abbey, Russian River, Jolly Pumpkin, just to mention a few, and we feel that somebody needs to take that and bring it further in Europe. So that's our next thing, focusing on that, because we think that creativity is somebody. It doesn't just occur, but you have to make sure that you do something about it, and that you're living in that path. If our barrel-aged beers will be only in small batches, or whether they will be more like commercially available, we think that the most important thing to make normal beer drinkers understand, to give them a chance to understand sour beers, barrel-aged beers, and so on, is to having at least a couple of labels which will be produced all the time, which will be blended and made again and again and again. That's one of the challenges, because all these micro organisms aren't always 100% predictable, and that's why blending different batches to get the right flavor profile is important to reproduce again the same brand. So our goal is to have at least two barrel-aged brands. One will be non-sour and one will be sour. We haven't defined anything else on that, but that will be coming within a year. After that, or parallel to that, we will always have new batches coming and going of experimental character. And then it's up to our importers to take what is there when it's there. And this means that it will not be available in places like in Alko, but it will be available in dedicated beer bars. And knowing our importer Piccolintu here in Finland, I think a lot will come here. I don't think you should be afraid of that. They're kind of switched on and focused. So that was kind of like a presentation of who we are, where we come from, and where we think we're going. I'm very happy to answer questions, and there's one. Whether our beers being exported quite early did that as a result of the exoticness of the Scandinavian I don't know. But to be honest, when we exported the first time, we were scared. We thought, shit, what have we done? We've created a brand nobody understands abroad. This is a disaster. And then we realized that, it looks Scandinavian. It actually conveys something. And you mentioned Oatly, then I'm kind of curious. Did they copy us? No, I don't know for how long time Oatly's been around, but to be honest with you, we thought that is the simplest of all symbols. It's just a letter, isn't it? But actually the O from Oatly is simpler. So kind of when I saw it the first time, I was kind of envious. But anyway, we think that the and how it stands out in the bar conveys the Scandinavian identity. And we think it's a strength, and we think that our designer has done a great job. By the way, I need to mention that the first time I saw the labels, I had to be reminded by our designer that we had this deal that since he didn't manipulate how we brew the beer. I should not tamper with his job of designing. But I thought that was hard because initially I thought, gosh, you cannot have a beer label like that. And then after a while it kind of grew on us and we realized that we've been okay. In Norway we have this government body called Innovation Norway, and they have actually borrowed beers from us to take to events and seminars about new modern Norwegian design. So actually we think that the design is very good, and we think that it has helped a lot. Hopefully, what we're thinking is hopefully, because think about it, we humans are very visual, and with a bottle of beer, you have no chance to know what's inside. You can only relate to the outside. So to have an appealing outside of a bottle is actually extremely important. And of course, it's so important that we don't let people down, that they think, oh, this looks cool, and then when they drink it, they think it's boring. So it's very important that the outside and the inside of the bottle conveys the same message. Okay, thanks. First craft beer was Nøgne. That's wonderful, and well, it kind of underlines that the designer knew what he was doing. Thank you. Well, guys, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for your patience. As I've told you, we respond to everyone. So if you at any time want to approach us at the brewery, send us an email. You can go on our website and you'll find the email of every individual who's employed in the company, and you're welcome to write to us, and I promise you that you'll get a proper response if there anything information you'd like to have or any comment you have to us about what we're doing. Thanks.